Welcome back to Ion Radio, everyone. I'm John, and if you're in chat, let me know if my mic is working properly, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Today is July 25th. It's a Monday of 2022, and we're going to be going over Season 4, Episode 5's match, which is Luminara versus Ramadi. So just waiting for this to go live to chat because it takes a few minutes, and then I'll move on from there. Hopefully everyone is doing well tonight. You sound great. Awesome. Thank you. Dublock is here. Backyard Films is here as well. Welcome, guys. So let's talk about this a bit. So this is a matchup that I ended up losing, so we're going to talk about a Ken win today. And, okay. Hey, what's up, Maxwell? Thanks. Sounds good. So we'll be talking about that and everything like that. So this Ken's list was actually brought to us by one of our Patreon members. I'm going to butcher this name really bad. Jan's Kruk, something to that effect. It's Jan with a little like feather on top of it. I don't know what it's called. CZ UK. So that's one of our Patreon members. So thank you very much for the list submission for that. Let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so we'll go over my list first. This list was me just trying to work through some different ideas that I've been having for a while. And as you can tell, the fighter lineup is kind of wacky. And it was mainly because these three bounty hunter fighters that I have in the list, I just have never really gotten to the table. And I just wanted to put them into a list. The objectives that this fleet have kind of punish you if you make me go second. But at the same time, I didn't have what I needed to really capitalize on being first player. The objectives are something crazy like Most Wanted, which Gazanti, Rami, just extra dice or extra dice. And then firing lanes, because I got 2 lambdas and moving tokens around is kind of funny. And then I think it's the last one is it's the outpost one. Give me one sec. When you don't play them, you don't remember them. Salvage run, that's it. So basically I could just move the Architens and the Gazanti forward and then pull those to me, and then like that whole center area is obstructed because of the obstacles all being there, and Rami then can fire through. So that's kind of the plan with these, but being first player doesn't do much for me. So we'll take a look at it. It's an Onager class test bed. It's got General Ramadi. It has Intel Officer, Sensor Team, Veteran Gunners, and then the Orbital Bombardment Particle Cannons. So the idea is that you can Intel Officer a token. Sensor Team guarantees that you cancel out the next token. And then Veteran Gunners should, in theory, mean that you could get some damage out. It doesn't always work that way. So I think 2 of my 4 attacks that I took with the Onager only did 2 damage on 6+ red dice, which is insane after a full reroll. So that really hurt me. This is actually something that I talked about. There was a tournament that I went to, and I played Sloniger. That was about almost a year ago. It was the beginning of the year. Time flies, but not that fast. And like I was talking about the relative like weaknesses of the Onager, and the Onager struggles at killing multiple large ships. And people were like, well, shouldn't it have weakness? It does. And I was just talking about the realistic like approach of what the Onager can do. It's good at killing large ships, but you're limited in how many shots you can take during the game. So it maximizes how much damage that you can actually do. So you need to be able to know how much damage you can do, or the potential amount of damage you can do throughout the course of the game. So in this game, after deployment, I knew I was going to lose the Onager, so I was probably only going to get 3 shots on it. That's why Cataclysm is such a good title for it, is because then you get that additional shot. Because if it's only 6 turns, combat really only happens over 2 to 3 of those turns, so you're limited to actually 4 attacks usually with the Onager before you have to start scooting it away. So if you don't have those full 4 attacks, then you can't kill. And it's going to take roughly 2 to 3 shots to kill a large completely out without any support. So that's using all of your dice, not getting just, what's it called? The thermal shielded out. So you need to be able to do that much damage. So like you need to know the damage potential. This is where like double Onager becomes so crazy because you can kill like a large off every turn. So there's the damage window potential. Okay, so let's go check out the rest of the fleet. I have been trying to fly more Architects because, like I talked about on the last backseat, I am terrible at flying them. And I'm just still terrible at flying them. So this one is set up differently than the last one. The last one, because it had Vader, I had, I believe, XI7s on it, just because Vader could do the re-rolling, and then whatever damage it is just has to sink into the same hull zone pretty much. This one, you have Intel Officer, so you can try to get rid of tokens, so then you can maximize how your damage is dealt through. And so like the Onager, like if you're attacking, let's say, a large ship, you could attack it a couple times with the Architects first to get rid of either the brace. Like hopefully you can strip the brace off, and then by the point, if they choose not to suspend the brace, you have no shields left. And then the Link Turbo Laser allows it to reroll. Next ship is just a Gazanti Comsnet to pass tokens over to the Onager, and then with Rami, it can get obstructed and shoot. And that's cool, because extra dice for free is just extra dice for free. So then here's the really weird squad ball. And it's Hondo Anako in Slave 1, and he has the ability, like, you can move fighters around, which I don't know if I've ever actually used. Maybe in a campaign, maybe not. I don't know if I've ever used it, but because I rarely ever have even put him on the table, I wanted to get him on the table. That's why he's on here. With Bosk, who's just another bounty hunter ship that I don't know if I've ever really used. If you look at the painting of the ship, it's literally just me dry brushing the squad brown. And that's it, because I've never spent the time to actually paint it. And then I have IG-88, another one that I've never really used, and I just wanted to get all 3 of these together and use them. They're all rogue, which is kind of cool, but they're expensive. Like, they would have more of a place in the Imperial, I feel like, if there wasn't the ace limit. But with the ace limit, like, you're just stuck at 4, and 2 of them are going to be like Jendon and Merrick usually, so you have 2 more, and do you really want to spend it on Bosk and IG-88, or do you go for some of the other Imperial aces that are more important? Then I have 2 Lambda shuttles, and like I was saying, like the objective suite that I brought with me allowed me then to move tokens around. So like they were just there for that, just for token shenanigans. So that's kind of the list. To make it a better list, you would have to take Hondo Anaka out of his fighter, put Hondo onto as the officer onto the Gazanti, and then you add Cataclysm to the Onager, so then you can get that turn 1 shot, which goes back to how much damage potential that the ship can have. So that's about it for my list. I'm going to jump to chat, see what's going on in chat, and then we will take a look at the fleet that Ken flown from our Patreon submission. Diach is here. He thought the Empire was going to win. Yeah, well, it didn't. And then we have Scott here. But dice, yet. The last list lose because of dice rolls, or did it not matter as much? Oh, it mattered. 2 hits a turn. So I'll actually talk about that when I go over how the game actually played out, like in like positioning and things like that, because it was pretty close. The onager was pretty much going to die regardless. Like I really wrote that off from the beginning, but it should have done more that potential damage to the ships. That's where the game is. Zurich instead of Hondo? Yeah, you could have used him. I don't know. Have you ever used Zurich? Because he's like, even like Dengar / Tell for me, like it's a guarantee not to get damage. Even when Ken used Tell against me, he doesn't get damage either. He's just terrible for both of us for doing against ships. And Zurich's the same way, like rolling his attack does nothing. I'm like, okay, well, I'll damage one of my ships to re-roll that. And then he still doesn't do anything. And I'm like, oh, so net damage negative on my side. That's one of the reasons why I stopped using him. What's up, Ken? Glad you were able to make it this week. Okay, let's switch back and we'll talk about this list. Okay, so this list is a double Venator, double Pelta list. It has a Venator 2 class Star Destroyer with Luminara, local fire control, tranquility, flak guns, thermal shields, ordnance pods, and the DBY 827 heavy turbo laser towers. So this is, sorry, I just noticed chat. Yes, you could use it to power up Bosk. That is I like that idea. But then again, like it's the problem with that is like with the Imperial Ace, like, is that your whole strategy? Bosk only has 1 defense token. He's going to go down pretty fast if there's actually a dedicated anti-squadron that he's going up against. It's just those squadrons, while I would love to use them, the other Imperial squadrons are just better. So this Loom list, let's talk about it. So basically you take your local fire control and you swap it out for your contain, and now you have 2 salvos. You have Loom to regenerate them if you can, and then Tranquility to act as all of your defense tokens that are actually useful for keeping it alive. Thermal shields, if you're going to get hit by something like an onager, you can cancel out a bunch of dice. Thermal shields in Luminara is like the onager's worst matchup that it can go against, because thermal shields knocks out half of its dice, and then like when I have intel officer, I can't even intel officer that token, and then the redirect doesn't matter because you have tranquility, so you just don't spend anymore, and then you just move shields around, and that's it. That's all you do. Flak guns and local fire control in DBY doesn't really work very well against ignition shots because it doesn't do anything at all. But against like the things like the Architens flying around, when you shoot it, it shoots back and you hit it just as hard because that DBY can change the black to just be a hit crit, which is brutal when you're taking like 4 damage from a salvo on 3 dice. Like that's what's so good about those ordnance pods. With outrunning fighters, you get to just attack fighters at the end of your phase, which is pretty awesome as well. Like when you see how much damage Ken actually did to my fighters, and most of that's just ordnance pods, it's kind of insane. Okay, so then the next ship is the Venator 2 class Star Destroyer Adi Gali and local fire control. It's basically equipped the exact same, except it is Adi Gali instead of a commander in Tranquility. So Adigali, if every defense token that you do spend, you're able to move a shield to another side. So it's another way to use Luminara to either spend a lot of defense tokens and move some shields around, or just spend 1 to redirect one of the damage to the side. So it's pretty useful. It also has the thermal shield, so like you thermal shield, cut the dice in half, and then you Galia automatically can then transfer like a redirect of 1. So you just basically treat it like you had you were attacked by XI7s. So it is pretty good. Same thing. And then you have a Pelta class transport frigate with Clone Captain Zach. Clone Captain Zach is the one that you can exhaust him, and you can add an additional die when you're attacking from the side or rear hull zone, which is on a Pelta, like when you get close in range, you can con fire and shoot out the side with 3 dice, which is pretty crazy. It is projection experts, munitions resupply, and reactive gunnery. So, interesting note on this is that after Ken and I filmed this, there's this big debate that went down on one of the rules discords about timing of specifically the resupplies. And Ken and I realized that we had been playing it wrong since the beginning. And it's one of those weird timing issues of when everything takes place. So if you look at the timing window of the whole like reveal the command dial step, there's a lot that actually goes onto that more than you think. Because when you really think about it, you usually think of like, oh, I do my reveal command dial step, and then I move into squadron or engineering, and then I move on to attack. And that's actually not the case. The squadrons and engineering are actually part of that reveal dial step. So if you look at the wording for when these two cards go off, it's after your reveal dial step. So that means you would... It's also just hard when you are playing the game, because when you deal with tokens and dials, you want to deal with all the tokens and dials up front and not necessarily what's it called? You want to like you do some commands, then you go back and resolve other things. So most of the time it's just clumped together, but technically it's not. And where it specifically comes into effect is the next Pelta. So we'll jump over there. So this one has the parts resupply. So the order of action is you reveal your dial, engineering. We're going to resolve the dial, projection experts, and then we move our shields all around and regen shields. And then parts resupply happens after that step, and then we gain a token. So we can't actually use the token given to ourselves on the same turn that we give it to ourselves, because technically that's outside of the timing window. And I know for sure that's not how Ken and I originally did it, but that's like when you, like there's so many like before and after and during cards that they start lining up when you can actually do it. And, you know, we just never really paid attention to when it does it. So the second Pelta is a TBY 7-3. So you get the extra evade token, this is my favorite of the two Pelta titles. Again, projection experts, and then parts resupply and reactive gunnery. Reactive gunnery on Peltas is just so good because you don't want to get hit by 2 red dice. Like it's just like it already takes like too many shots to kill because it's a tanky ship, and then like it's shooting back at you at the same time, which is no fun. So that's pretty much the list. Yeah, so let's jump back to chat. We'll talk a little bit about that list. If you guys have any questions or ideas or comments on that, hit me up in the chat, and then we'll go over objectives and then how the game played out. Okay. Zach's Pelta is a bit of a dark horse on this list, cannot be underestimated or ignored. That is very true, especially when you just get it into close range. Like, clearly the 2 Venators are the primary targets for trying to kill things in this list, because if you let them get close to you, they're going to annihilate you. But, like, those Peltas are super tanky, and I was just mentioning that. Like, it's going to take multiple shots to kill because of their specifically their defense suite. And evade is really good, so it can block things at long range, and then it can brace, and then you can redirect, and you have like, I think, 5 shields on the front/side hull that you can then deviate things to. And if you don't need to cancel a dice or re-roll a dice, you just use it with this setup, and you are then salvoing back. It's pretty strong. And then Luminar allows you to flip things back to green on multiple attacks. And your that's Zach, then like when you get close or you let it fly by, it's going to be hitting you even harder. Like that double arc out the rear, we'll just pretend like if you have a con fire, you probably should be engineering, but let's say you have a con fire. So that's like a black, a red, and then Zach adds in a black out the side, and then 3 reds with the con fire out the back. You're taking 6 damage. This just goes into, this is like this whole season so far is me just ranting about how much I like Peltas in general. I like Peltas. I think Peltas are like one of the strongest ships in the game for rebels and for the Gar. Like, you guys will see shortly how Ken and I have built up our Clone Wars Rebellion and the Rim fleet, and I was hard pressed not to bring a Pelta any chance I could bring a Pelta, because it's like when you start with no upgrades, it's a pretty good ship. You're throwing multiple dice, just reds. Who cares? No one's really going to have upgrades to either defend against them or re-roll them at the beginning, so they're strong. They have really good engineering, so they stay alive. You can put an upgrade on to pass shields to something else, which is really good. And like if you put like defensive type stuff like the salvo card that's on here, it's really powerful. You don't want to attack it, and it's like 50 points. It's crazy. It's one of my favorite ships. Ken flew the Republic well. They were the hardest faction to play due to a lot of things to pay it more attention to. Loom is tough to get right. Yeah, Loom is challenging, and welcome, Cro-Magnum. Glad you were able to make it, even if it's a bit late. Now we're going to be jumping right into the game, so if you want to see the talk about the fleets, you will have to go back and watch it on replay. What was I saying? Yeah, Gar is just hard in general. I think that Gar has a high potential ceiling, but it's really, really hard to play up front. CIS, I feel, is very easy. You just throw a bunch of hard cells down, put a commander that adds dice or something to it, and then you just roll dice in until they die. Like, it's not super strategic. While Republic falls into this weird place of they want fighters. Like, honestly, I might have dropped a Pelta just to bring a couple fighters. But at the same time, like, their ships needs tokens. They need things to do things. I think this is a very well built list for the Gar, and it would do well in most circumstances, except like actually like heavy fighter, I think would just annihilate it even with ordnance pods. But you just attack it from a side and then try to limit what they can attack. But it's a really good list. Yeah, everyone's just talking about Gar is a challenge. So let's jump into the objectives. Ken had the bid here and made me go first. Mainly anytime you see a double strategic squadron, it's probably best to make that player go first, because if you go let them go second, you're probably going to be facing a farm list, which is what I had. So good call by Ken. So the choices are Most Wanted, Contested Outpost, and Doom Station. I mainly picked Contested Outpost because it allowed me to for sure know where Ken was going to be. And because I don't have the first shot on the first turn ability with the Onager, I need to know where he is so I can set up that second turn shot and then continue to shoot. Part of me, retrospectively, is like, maybe I should have taken Most Wanted. And well, that will go on a Pelta. It is what it is, and it will go on my Onager. I knew I was going to lose my Onager anyway. That's one of the reasons why I didn't take it. And technically, it would have been 5 points less than what Contested Outpost was. But the Onager probably would have gone down faster. But it's just a bad, like Doom Station, I don't want to deal with a speed 0 thing and then just the station moving across. Both of those, like Contested Outpost and Doom Station, are both bad to me, because I can't really contest them. Basically, I have to shoot Ken off of either one of them, and thermal shields really helps prevent that. So I had gone with Contested Outpost mainly just so I knew where Ken was. So we see the setup here. You got Luminara holding down the outpost. You have the other Venator, which is going to come screaming across to try to kill the Onager. Surprise. And this other Pelta that's going to follow him. This is the Zac one. Ken kept talking about how he wanted to get it in range so he could use Zac, and then it just was always just slightly out of arc, which is sad because we would have loved to see it happen. And then this guy's just going to chill and come in through here. My deployment, I just dropped my fighters because they're going to beeline it toward the station. They're mainly rogues, so they should do damage. And then you have the Gazanti that's going to follow them up, passing tokens to the Onager as I go. And then 2 Architens. The idea with this Architen was that I was going to just go across the front and then try to scoot over to the side as fast as possible. And what that would allow me to do then is get a strong attack off turn 2, so then the Onager can take that shot, because I want to pressure the tokens as fast as possible. And then this guy was going to come through here. So both Ken and I are both trying to like flank around with the centerpiece in the middle to hold down the line. And that's what you see. So the idea was for this ship to be able to get a good strong attack off here and scoot, and then the Onager to follow up on it. And that's when I did the majority of the damage to this Venator, was on that turn, because I really needed to kill this off, because then none of the other ships were in range to contest the outpost. And every turn that I didn't kill Luminar's flagship off meant that Ken was gaining 20 points on me. And you can see right here, this was me trying to take it out. So Loom's just sitting here. This ship is out of range, even though if I could, I contested this command 3. And it's exactly what I had described. And then we end up like this. And there was a reason why I attacked here Ken's not Luminara ship this turn compared to attacking the other Venator. And that was if I could get the crits off twice, knowing about the potential damage and everything like that, I knew to kill his second Venator, I needed to get more shots onto it. And with it being so close, like, I'm willing to sacrifice fighters to do that. So if I was able to roll the crit into this, I could then splash 2 damage onto him here, and that would eliminate his shields, and then all my fighters were going to be able to attack it, and I should be able to do enough damage that I could either kill it or have it in death range for the next turn, because I'm first player and I could then shoot it again and then hit that crit and splash 2 more damage onto it, killing it. Well, that did not work out as I had planned. So then, like, the next turn, the idea would have been, like, I could then shoot the Onager into his second Venator again, splash the damage, kill the other Venator. The other Venator would be pretty much dead. Should be able to take it out in the salvo or my Architen coming around, and then I would kill both of his Venators with just the Peltas. That did not work out. So, yeah. Then Ken, at this point, like, I already knew my Venator was going to die. But man, it went down. That Venator just annihilated me at close range, even with it being obstructed. And then, like, this is like the perfect double arc that you can do onto it, with the Venator. And the way he was on the asteroid, which is bad, except then it wasn't obstructed anymore. So all of his shots could just rain into the front. And this is where Ken's like, I shouldn't have clicked it one more, because this Pelta then would have been able to get his Zac shot off onto it. So the Pelta could have finished it. I always like small ships taking out larges. And then you see right here, I got one last shot, and the reroll of the red dice was not a hit, and the Venator survived, landing like this. Injured Pelta, very injured, Architan, on 1 health, Venator, never touched. Zac got away. Fighters just retreated. Like, I couldn't get them far enough. Like, they're rogue, but when we measured it out, they would only have gotten to about, like, this guy would have gotten to the farthest, and he was only going to be able to get to here, and by that point, Ken had been able to move and regen a shield, so it wouldn't have done anything anyway. Yeah, so then it just all spread. No one got the token the last turn. I wish that this wasn't trying to do squadrons, and I thought I could get it into range, and then Ken just whipped it out to the side, and I couldn't get my fighters in into it. But if not, I could have slowed down and maybe have taken the station for 1 turn, but it is what it is. So let's check out the score. Here we go. So Ken killed 206 points of my fleet because the Onager is my flagship, and then that Architon that suicided in to try to do damage, and then had 100 points of victory tokens for 306. I killed one of his Venators, the flagship, for 146 points. With that, it's a MOV. It should be more than 80. It should be 180, right? Or is that 280? Give me a second, because that math doesn't look right. Should be 160, not 180, or 80, which I still think is in that 8-3 category. Yeah, so it's still an 8-3, but it's 160. If I were able to kill his Venator, it would have then been like a 49-point game, even with Ken getting all of those victory tokens. So I needed like just slightly more damage on one of the turns against the Venator in front of me. And then I needed to kill, obviously, Luminara 1 turn earlier, but wasn't able to do that. And if I were to do that, then Ken would have gotten 1 last victory token. I would have killed that. And then we would have been contesting the outposts with our other ships instead of shooting at each other, like long range. And then it would have been like really, really close of a game. So that's about it. There was something I wanted to show you guys when I was talking about. Is this it? This is the turn. So this is the turn that if I was able to splash damage to the Venator, it would have been on 1 health then. And then on the next activation, when I shot Venator 2, which is, you can see, is already hurt, I would have then theoretically been able to splash damage into it to kill it. So at that point, with how bad my rolls were, I'm like, I just need to kill something instead of letting it just completely recharge with shields again, because Ken just kept passing at shields, and then Tranquility just kept it alive. Like, ooh, it was gross. Like 4 shields a turn from Peltas, and then 2 shields by itself is 6 extra health a turn. And like, I'm like, if I don't kill it right now, I'm not going to be able to kill it. Like, I can't get enough damage into it. But the idea was, theoretically, I could splash it and then splash it again the next turn. And like this at that point had only 3 health left because of all the salvos and things like that went into it. So it would have been really close to death. And then like 1 health, stupid Architon. So yeah. I'll check out chat. If you guys have any comments about it, let me know. So yeah, it was a struggle of a game back and forth. Ken's list countered my list because Luminara laughs in the face of Intel Officer, especially with Tranquility. And then Ken's list, which is like all of a salvo list, I laugh in his face because, I'm an Onager and I'm not going to let you salvo me anyway. So we're kind of like back and forth of you can't work against me type of a game. What do you think are other solid choices for turbo lasers on a Pelta? I don't think any of the Peltas have turbo laser slots, so I don't think any of them can take that. But let me double check. That one does not. None of the Rebels have turbo laser slots. The medical does not, and then the transport also does not. So no turbo laser slots for that. But usually my hierarchy of turbo laser slots goes something to this effect. If you have the points, you put Link turbo laser towers on it if you have red dice that you're shooting at long range in small packets, because then it just increases how much damage you do. If you have a way to re-roll or set your dice, then you go with XI7s, and that's for larges and smalls. Like the week prior when I had Vader, well, full re-rolls on Architon shots are great. So I don't need a card that will allow me to reroll with that. So XI7s just allows the damage to be centered into the hull zone. That's really it that I use for turbo laser slots. Sometimes there's a specific thing that you can use, like specifically like spinal armaments is good in some lists. You'll see me use it next week, or this week actually. And it's an expensive card, but the red in front and back works well. It works great on Liberties. I feel like I always want to try to put it on Providence for the CIS with the double turbo lasers. Like anytime I have a double turbo laser slots, I'm like, but how about Spinal or the expanded batteries or whatever to put it out the side. But for the most part, I just rotate between Link Turbo Laser Towers and XI7s. Those are my two go-to for turbo lasers. I don't know. Ken flew the Republic. Yeah, we already talked about that. That's weird because I didn't see the turbo laser the last time. Okay. No. I think Jen did a good job to corral and anchor Ken exactly where he wanted needed to him to be on the station. Yes. And to destroy one capital ship and then to hopefully mop up the second while the squadron's brownest shoot up the smallers. Would have been nice. Dice did not agree with me on that. Yeah, my rolls were pretty bad. Ken did re-add it. Definitely frustrating when your dice do not make the turn and start offering up. Yeah, we definitely are oil and waterless. Like neither of them are compatible with each other. They both like hard counter each other in certain ways. So I hopefully, Scott, I just figured I'd just toss in what I liked as turbo lasers. So anytime I say that my dice are bad, I like to make sure that it's just not me complaining and to know for a fact if the dice were actually bad. So I went shot by shot through and figured how much damage per dice rolls were done by all of my ships. So the MVPs, to no one's surprise, were those Architens. When they hit, man, did they hit hard. Like some of my best rolls that I've had in a long time actually came from these Architens. Like there's this one time that I rolled 4 dice and got 6 damage, which is just ungodly good. But then there's also times that I rolled 5 dice and got 1 damage, which is really, really bad, especially when you have rerolls. So the Architens overall rolled 27 dice and they scored 27 hits. So perfect. That's great. Can't ask for more. They were the MVP. Everything after that goes right downhill, though. So the worst ship in the game was the Gazanti. The Gazanti rolled 4 blue dice in this game for a grand total of 1 hit. So that means 3 of those dice ended up being just accuracies. And it was just the pepper ship. It was just going to be like plunking damage in, maybe a crit here and there, but no, it decided to be against that. So it only hit 25% of the shots on the 75% shot chance. Then you have my fighters. My fighters did really, really bad. The fighters rolled 17 dice for 8 damage. And that's not even counting technically the dice that Bosk was putting into block, usually salvo, so he didn't just immediately die from it. But like, yeah, so technically that's probably 4 more dice, so that's 21 dice for 8 total damage, which is just ridiculously, because I had like bombers. They should have been bombers and black dice. But no, I think the only things that hit consistently were the lambdas. They did 1 turn that they rolled 2 dice into the front of it. So lambdas did something. Who would have thought the lambdas did more damage? Out of the 8 damage, lambdas did 25% of them. Crazy. So they hit then 47% of the time. And then you go to the Onager. And the Onager was like this weird, like, all or nothing. Usually nothing. It did pretty well on salvo. I think I was 6 dice for 6 damage on salvo, which is pretty good, especially when it's like a red dice and a blue dice to get that consistent damage from that. But I took 4 Onager shots, and the first one was good-ish. I rolled 9 dice and got 7 damage. and then I rolled 6 dice and got 2 damage, and then I rolled 6 dice and got 2 damage, and then the last shot against the defense, like speed 0 ship, it doesn't really count, but I got 4 damage out of that. So the onager overall rolled 35 dice and only scored 22 hits, with 3 of those attacks being salvo for 6 of that damage. So if you take out that, so the onager rolled 29 dice for 16 damage in its ignition shot, and that's not even taking into account that Ken canceled out 6 plus of my dice, all black dice, with thermal shields. Crazy. Thermal shields are so powerful. Like, that really, really neutered the power of that onager, even with rolling poorly. Taking those 6 extra dice out, super, super hurt. Because even if that came up with, I think with full rerolls with veteran gunners or whatever, I only came up to be 0.62 or so. 62% of the time a dice was a hit, which is just really, really sad. Especially it should be at least 75% or higher. So brutal, but you live by the dice, you die by the dice. Architens, they fired well occasionally, and then went super, super hot to even it out. But the onager just did not pull its weight. I needed just a little bit more damage, and it just didn't want to give it to me. So, absolutely 100% Architens. They were glorious. Yeah, the Architens did well. I still need to figure out how to fly them and not have them explode. I think a lot of times it's because I like slashing them across the field, and they need to be way out on the outskirts. But a lot of times when I'm playing it, I'm down activations, so it's hard to get them into position. Or the game previous with Dooku versus Vader. Ken so out-deployed me. I had to have them somewhere on the board, and then they're trapped. They're I'm so scared, I need to shoot. And then I can't get them far enough away from, I either head right into his hard cell and munificent, or I turn the other way and I head right into his recusant. There's no good options there. So I just went straight and let everything shoot me like an idiot, but that is what it is. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them. I'm going to pull up the sneak peek for this next game, because I'm pretty excited for it. Let's see. Defensive, dang. Okay. Yeah. The defensive that's on the Peltas is pretty good. Because it seems like it should be an offensive card because of all the salvo. But if I were to switch it out, I don't think I would. Maybe reinforce blast doors on the Peltas, because that would just be really annoying. Because a lot of times, with their shields and everything like that, even a big attack isn't going to kill it in one actual go. So you should have enough that you can discard with reinforced blast doors. Reactive gunnery, though, it's just the golden standard. You don't really need... I mean, honestly, you could put thermal shields on it. That's kind of funny. That would be really annoying to try to kill a Pelta at long range. Thermal shields half your dice away, and then I'm just going to cancel it with the evade. Also, if you put expert shield techs on it with OB1, it's just 0 damage, which is always funny as well. I wouldn't use any of the other defensive. It would either be reinforced blast doors or reactive gunnery for the Pelta. Okay. Maxwell says, are fun with Thrawn. I know, but every time I do Thrawn, I'm I should use fighters. Or I just black dice and I go into really close range. And it's something I'll have to work on. I think for the next wave of seasons 6 and 7, I think I might have Thrawn, so I'll have to see what I can do with him with that. Okay, are we ready for the sneak peek? Episode 6 coming out this Friday is going to be Tag versus Sato, 2 very underused commanders. I believe this tag list is brought to us by one of our Patreon members. Let me double check that. Yes, Rovechkins. This is a Rovechkin list, and it has Architens. Ken's good at flying Architens, and then this is my Sato list. If you guys have been following, I think almost for 2 years now, this is a discussion that we had a long time ago on our Discord channel, and it was what's the best use for Sato, and it's Sato is a trap unless you're playing like 800 points. But we did multiple different versions of it. We played Blue Dice Sato with Liberties. I played like up close, in your face, like brawly type of Sato with like double MC75s. Like you can go find these channels. I play a lot of Sato. I like Sato. Sato's one of my favorite commanders. But this has always been kind of like my classic how to play Sato. With a couple MC30s, assault frigates, a bunch of A-wings just to move things around. So I'm excited to show you guys what this list looks like because it's kind of cool how it all works out. So that's the sneak peek for this next week. I'm excited to talk about it. So I honestly think the next Backseat's going to be a Sunday morning again, just with the way my schedule works out. Like I work 3 days in a row. My wife works 3 days in a row. We're going to both be really tired. So a Monday night's probably not going to be working for next week. So I would say aim for Backseat being Sunday. I think that's what, July 31st? Is there 31 days in July? Yes, July 31st morning. So Sunday morning, probably around 8 o'clock, we'll do the next Backseat, and we'll talk about this tag list, which I actually think this is a really decent tag list, and tag's really hard to do, and the Sato list, which I think this is the best of my Sato list that I can run. So I'm excited about this matchup to show you guys. Let's see. Ken, love the sneak peeks. Yeah, Ken does a sneak peek for everyone on Wednesday for the broader audience, unless you watch the Backseat. And then Wednesday is also the day that our Patreon members can check out our videos for early access. Scott says, yes, tag versus Sato. It's going to be good. And then Maxwell says, love some Sato. Exactly. Also, Gen Con's coming up, so I don't know if any of you guys are going to Gen Con. Go ahead and post in the comments if you are or not. Ken and I are both going. I haven't been to Gen Con since I think like 2018 maybe. Pre-pandemic, all that fun stuff. So we're both really excited to be going. We're both going to be competing in the Armada tournament. And also just hanging out, doing what you do at Gen Con, which is going to be spending way more money on board games than you really should. So we're excited to be hanging out there. Hopefully we can meet a bunch of you guys there. Our friends and buddies that do our command stack with us, Ryan and Garrett will be there too. So definitely come by and say hi to us. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that week we actually have sneak preview. We actually have something new and special planned for that Friday because we clearly won't be there. So I'm not going to say more than that, but it's something new that Ken and I have been thinking about for a while, and we're going to release it on that day. And then the Backseat for that week, because I'll be out of town, is going to be the my playthrough of the Chicago Open that took place like back in June, because people asked me not to talk about lists and how the tournament went because they were prepping for Gen Con. So that will be afterwards, and I'm just going to talk about the list and how my games went and different ideas that came from there. So you guys will have Armada content while Ken and I are at Gen Con playing Armada and not being able to release and do stuff with that. So James says, how many battles are won in the fleet building setup / turn 0 step? A lot. Armada is very much so a game that can be, let me rephrase that. It's not necessarily won, but you can lose in deployment and list building. Not necessarily automatically win. Like you can build a good list and then bring it to the table and play it exactly how you want to. And like that's the thing with this list that I played this week, the Onager with Architent list. Like, I made it. Cool. I brought it to the table, and technically I played it exactly how I wanted to play it. All the different parts moved to be where I wanted them to be. Like, I knew that Architan was going to suicide through, just try to do as much damage as he could. I knew my Onager probably was going to die unless I could kill both of his flagships, or both of his large ships. It did what it did. But I didn't win that game or lose that game on deployment. But you could lose, like, if you had a list that had no answer for the Onager whatsoever, like without thermal shields, without Luminara, like, you could just lose as soon as you put your pieces down, but you don't necessarily just automatically win at the start. That's kind of how I see it. Like, a lot of times I can tell you I'll lose this game right after deployment, but it's almost impossible to say I will 100% win this game after deployment. It's just kind of how it is. Scott, you're going to be at Gen Con? Awesome. Are you going to be playing in the Armada tournament, or are you just going to be there hanging out? Because I know one of my friends that's from the Chicagoland area, he's really good at Armada, and he actually won't be participating in the tournament. I mean, he already has a world invite, so he doesn't need to worry about that, but he's going with friends, and he's just going to do the Gen Con, play games until you have to sleep, then wake up and play more games. So I don't think I'll ever have a Gen Con, because usually, like, the tournament you have to, like, reserve 2 days for, like, where you just play board games all the time and don't sleep. Jam says that makes sense, that you can cripple yourself in those phases of the game. Yeah. Sometimes Ken and I will just completely redeploy, because certain games can be just decided immediately. So we actually have a game like that coming up later this season. So we do something weird with that. Like, you guys can see our thought process. Like, this is where the games won or lost, and boom. But yeah, like, a lot of times, like, certain lists just hard counter other lists. Oh, I got to get back to Gen Con. Sorry, I misread that, Ross. That makes way more sense. You could jump in the Jeep last minute. That would be a ride. Yeah, so that's about it, I think, for this week. I gave you guys a lot of spoilers, and coming up, some good discussion on fleets. I need to burn my dice, which is interesting because Ken and I talk about this all the time because we roll the same dice. And I roll better on the table, and that sounds really, really dumb, but I'll literally take a handful of dice, roll it multiple times in the dice tray, terrible. And then I roll it on the table, and it's just like amazing. And then Ken rolls it into the dice tray, amazing, amazing, amazing. And then he rolls it on the table, and it's junk. So sometimes we're like, maybe we roll on the table, but then dice, the way I throw dice, they go everywhere. Like, I have hard enough time getting them into the dice tray. But man, I might just need to purify my dice somehow. Ken says that there's a place that you can go and they do like a ritual on them at Gen Con, which I think is funny, but I'm not going to do that. But maybe I should. Maybe I should just dig through all my dice and make a new bag of dice, because I have like all those Clone Wars starter sets and just tons of dice. But if I remember, those were even worse the times that we both played with them. Like, I didn't hit and Ken didn't hit. And it was, I think, just a game that we were playing against each other, and we just kind of laughed because we just flew by each other without killing each other, waving with dice out the side. So yeah, okay, well, thank you very much for everyone tuning in this week and coming and chatting with Ken and myself about our games. I look forward to talking to you guys again next week, and then Gen Con, so hopefully we can see you guys there. Until next time, I'm John, and you guys have been watching Ion Radio and the Backseat Admiral.